Welcome to Common Sense Care, Parenting Gender-Confused Children with Truth and Love, brought to you by Partners for Ethical Care. So-called affirmative care is the gender industry's one-size-fits-all answer for all children and adults who struggle with their identity. But in no other area of education, medicine, or psychology is a one-size-fits-all answer appropriate for every single person. At Partners for Ethical Care, we believe that each child is an individual and should be treated with the appropriate care for that person. So welcome back. I'm Maria Keffler.
And I'm Erin Brewer, and we're going to do something different today, Maria.
Yes, we are. You want to tell people what we're doing?
Well, we got a lot of feedback on the one video that we did where we did role playing. And so we decided that we would take a number of sort of hot button issues and role play them out so that our viewers can sort of see the dynamic that might occur. Sometimes we say, we give advice, but oftentimes it's if you have like a model of something, it's a little bit easier to understand what we're talking about. So we're just going to jump into this and see how that works. And hopefully it will give you some sort of insights on how these conversations might take place.
And so these are not, I was going to say, these are not scripted. We didn't write out scripts for these. We've got a few topics of, here's a situation. And the way that we role play it is probably not exactly the way it's going to go for you. And some of these, there could be a number of different ways it goes. So I don't really know how this is going to go. We're just going to try it and see how it works.
Yeah, this is an experiment. Hopefully it's useful. The first topic is the coming out speech. And Maria's going to be the mom, and I'm going to be the newly trans-identified child.
Okay, here we go, the coming out speech.
Hey, birthing parent, there's something I need to tell you. I know you're probably not going to like it, but this is really important to me. And if you don't like it, I'm just going to find another birthing parent to take care of me. I realize that I'm not a girl, I'm a boy, and you really just need to start calling me he, him pronouns. And my name's Ash, and yeah, that's me now. And you probably even know, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm really a boy. It's pretty obvious to all my friends. My teachers have totally accepted it. And they just said that I should tell you about it. So I've been using the boys' bathroom and locker room at school. And now it's time for you to accept me as your son.
Wow, honey, okay. This is a lot for me. This, I wasn't prepared to hear this, and I'm pretty confused. Okay, what I'm hearing is that you don't believe you're a girl. You believe you're really a boy.
A boy. I am a boy.
Okay. And you want us to consider you a boy, and you are behaving and you're living as a boy at school and other places.
Yeah, because they know I'm a boy, and you're the last people really who don't know, and it's important for you to know.
Okay. I'm really confused about this because when you were born, it was really clear that you were a girl because you have girl.
I was assigned that the doctors assigned me based on my genitals. But genitals don't define me as a boy or a girl. It's all about how I feel. And I know I'm a boy.
Okay. I want to understand this. I really, and this may take me some time to understand this. So I hope you can be patient with me while I try to understand what's going on. How do you know what it feels like to be a boy?
Well, I just am one. It's not really about even feelings. I just know I am.
Okay. I want to understand like what makes you know that, like, because in my experience and my understanding of sex, our sex is based on our chromosomes, and it's based, our chromosomes express in our genitals.
That's like just such antiquated science. Like science has gone so much further than that since you learned it. And that's why it's probably hard for you to understand.
Oh, that might be. What science are you talking about that supports an idea that you can have a different sex inside than outside?
Well, they've just shown that like gender is really what defines us, and sex is just like our genitals. And um, a lot of people get confused by this, so I'm not surprised, especially because you went to school so long ago that you don't really understand how science has changed.
Mm. Well, can you help me with the science? Like, what science are you referring to? Do you have like research studies? Is there something in a textbook somewhere that I can read?
I don't even think it's in textbooks yet. I think it should be though. I think it will be soon. It's really all about like the doctors, they look at you and they just sort of assign you based on your genitals. Like they just, and that's all they look at. And genitals definitely don't define me, because it's possible to be a boy and have a vagina, or to be a girl and have a penis. And again, I understand, like that's why I didn't really want to talk to you, because I knew you'd be like not familiar with all the new research that's come out.
Okay, but I am still really interested in seeing some of that research because I would like to educate myself on this. So if you have some of that research, which it seems like you've read because you're very convinced that this is the correct path for you to take, can you share some of that with me?
Yeah, I can share it. There's like websites like HRC and Planned Parenthood, and they have so much information about this. It's really cool. Like they're right on the cutting edge of this, and I'm so thankful that they're like putting it out there. So I'll share those links with you.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see those. HRC is the Human Rights Campaign. I believe that's the funding and activism arm of the gay and homosexual lobby. Am I understanding that
Well, it's
correctly?
not just like homosexuals, because I'm not homosexual. So it's like the whole LGBTQAI plus plus, not just the gays and lesbians.
Okay, okay. Well, I misunderstood that. But am I right that their purpose is lobbying for funding and political
They're
activism?
saving lives of people like me is really what's happening. And they are out there like fighting for us.
Hmm. How are they saving lives?
Well, because a lot of times, like if teachers and parents and stuff, if they don't really accept someone, then that person might just go and kill themselves.
Are there statistics about that?
Oh yeah, like it's amazing how many of these poor transgender people like me kill themselves. It's just like it's so hard. It's so hard. And that's why I hope you can accept it, because if not, I'm going to just have to find other parents.
I understand that you're really struggling. I can see that you're really having a hard time with this, and I'm sorry. I don't want you to be in pain and struggling. But I really want to understand the basis for this decision. I want to go back to the suicide statistic again. Where's that coming from? What are you?
Like 40% of us end up attempting suicide because it's so hard being transgender in a world that is so transphobic.
Where are you getting that statistic, honey? I want to see where that's
It's a
coming from.
study that I can send you the study. It's by this group. I can't remember the name, but it's like they showed how, like, oh my gosh, there's so much discrimination. Like people like me can't get health care, we can't get education, and it's all because of transphobic people. And I sure hope you're not transphobic.
That's interesting. Wow. So are kids being kicked out of school for being transgender?
Well, it's just really hard to be in school if your teachers like are misgendering you and using your wrong name and making you go into the wrong bathroom. That is so hard. Like it's just so hard. I can't even believe how hard it is. Like all those years I had to use the girls' bathroom. And now that I'm finally able to use the boys' bathroom, it's like I just am so happy.
Hmm. Can I go back just a little bit? Again, this is just so out of left field for me. I didn't see this coming at all. When did you start feeling this way?
Oh, I have felt this way all my life, but I was so scared to tell anybody about it. Like I knew from the time that I was little, and I liked playing with those Tonka trucks. You remember? I loved those Tonka trucks. They were so much fun. But I knew if I told people that I was actually a boy, that they would think I was crazy. So I just never told anybody.
Huh. Well, even as recently as just, I don't know, 6 months ago, I think it was back at Christmas. I mean, you asked for makeup and you were trying to get me to let you wear high heels and you were trying to get me to let you wear that mini skirt. Do you remember that? And I was like, no, you're not wearing that mini.
Oh, I know. I was trying so hard to be a girl. I was just thinking like maybe if I just pretend to be a girl well enough that maybe like it would help me feel like a girl. But the other thing, is that some men wear makeup and some men wear high heels. And so to suggest that just because I wanted to wear makeup and high heels means that I'm a girl is kind of transphobic.
Well, it's interesting because that really is a stereotype, isn't it? It's sort of a stereotype that boys like to play with Tonka trucks, and it's really a stereotype that girls like to wear makeup and dresses.
I know they're so hard when like I have some friends, and they were assigned female or male at birth and they're actually girls. And like it's so hard because they just want to wear some makeup. They just want to wear cute dresses. Like I actually shared some of my makeup with some of my friends because their parents wouldn't buy it for them. And they're just so much happier now that they're able to like really be themselves. And it's just so sad that like that society is so mean that if they want to, be their true selves as girls, that they get discriminated against.
Well, is it possible for those boys, you said assigned male at birth, is it possible for them to wear makeup and still be a boy?
Well, it's okay for boys to wear makeup, but they want to wear makeup because they're girls.
Okay. Can you help me out? I'm really trying to understand this. Can you give me an explanation of being transgender that doesn't have anything to do with those ridiculous stereotypes like boys play with trucks and girls wear dresses?
Oh, yeah, like it totally. So being transgender is when you've been assigned one sex and you know that you're the opposite sex. It's so simple, really.
Okay, but how do you know that you're the opposite sex? And hang on just a minute for your answer, because I'm thinking about my own experience, and I've never lived life from anybody else's perspective but my own. I've only lived it as Maria. I've never lived it as Erin, even. I don't know what it's like to live life from your experience.
Ash, can you please
What's
not misgender me?
okay? I've never lived it as you. I've never lived it as, your dad. I've never experienced life from any perspective but my own. So, how would I know what it feels like to be you? Or how would I know what it feels like to be a man like your dad? How can you know what it feels like to be somebody other than you?
Well, you don't have to because like you obviously are happy being a woman, and so it's not a big deal because that means you're cisgender. And so it's just that you're like comfortable being a woman. So you are a woman, right? Like so you don't have any question. If you were questioning it, then you would understand. But because you've never questioned whether or not you're a woman, then you're a woman. Like and so for me, like the whole time I was like, well, am I really a girl? I just don't feel like a girl. And it's those feelings of just like knowing inside that there's something wrong and that I'm in the wrong body.
Well, okay. What does it mean to feel like a girl, though?
Well,
What does that mean?
well, clearly you're comfortable, right? You're cisgender. You're so comfortable just being you. You don't feel like you need to be something else.
Hmm.
And so that's the difference is it's all about these feelings of just distress and like I am so uncomfortable in this body. And like I'm hoping you and dad will be okay with it, but I really want to start on some testosterone soon because I will so much better if like I can just stop being, start looking more like myself. Like in my feelings are going to be so much more comfortable if I start looking more like a boy.
Hmm. Well, there's two things I want to talk about there. The medicalization issue is something your dad and I are going to have to talk about.
I'm gonna do it. Like if you don't support me, I'm gonna find a way to do it. So you might as well just go with it because I'll figure out a way to get it.
Huh. Well, that makes me really sad that you are willing to go do something your dad and I are not comfortable with, because your dad and I love you very much. Do you know that we love you?
Well, it's really hard when you're sounding really transphobic here. And so I think if you really loved me, then you wouldn't be so transphobic.
What do you mean by transphobic? How do you think I'm behaving as a transphobic person?
Well, you're like kind of questioning this, like sort of like, well, I have to talk to dad to see if it's okay for me to like be my authentic self. Like it's not really up to you and dad if I'm my authentic self.
Well, what if your sister came to me and said, I've decided that I'm not going to eat anymore. I'm too fat and I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to eat, like once a week, one meal, and that's it. And I expect you to support me on that. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I don't know really that she would ever do that. Like,
But if you did, because there are people who suffer eating disorders, there are people who look in the mirror and see themselves as fat, even though they're not. And your sister's quite thin.
yeah,
So, what if she came to me and she said, Mom, I'm really a fat person and I need to lose this weight.
I'd
And I
be so
expect,
worried about her. But it's so different because she's not fat, but I am a boy. That's the difference is like, she's clearly not fat, she's skinny, but I know that I'm a boy.
well, when I look at you, I see a girl.
Well, that's just because I haven't started T yet. Like once I start T, then you'll be like, oh right, there's my son. I hope that you'll be that accepting of me, that you'll be
Well,
able to really like it's almost like I kind of think of it as like marble and like I've been chiseled away by marble to look, like present more female, but the testosterone is going to like reveal the true me, the authentic self that I know that I am. And then you'll be able to look at me and you'll know that I'm a boy.
what do you know about testosterone? What all does it do to you?
Well, it's gonna lower my voice and it's gonna like I'm gonna be able to grow a beard and mustache, which I'm super excited about. And I'm gonna get more muscular, so I'm gonna be super buff, and it's gonna be really cool.
Does it have any negative side effects?
Well, I don't really think so. Like, I think, are there any negative side effects of being a man? I mean, like sometimes there are things that are hard about being a man, but that's not really a negative side effect. It's like just really being me. So I'll have the same maybe problems that men have. That's appropriate because I am one.
Well, when I think about medications, I don't know of any medications, even like just aspirin or ibuprofen. I don't know of any that don't have some sort of side effects, negative side effects. And I'm not talking about negative effects of being a man. I'm talking about negative effects from medicine. So when you buy aspirin, it comes with a whole insert of contraindications and side effects, and there's all these things that can happen, and you can only, take this much.
Well, right. But see, in this case, my body really should have been producing the testosterone. So it's not like a medicine, it's more like making my body the way it was supposed to be. So it's sort of like if somebody hadn't been taking vitamins for a long time and they were like really malnourished because they hadn't had the right vitamins and they started taking the vitamins, that's what their body needed. And so it's not like there's going to be side effects because really my body should have been producing testosterone. It's just that for some reason it didn't.
Well, your body hasn't been producing testosterone because it's been producing estrogen,
I
right?
know, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Like I'm so excited to get that out of me. Like and just to start being a boy and just to like everybody will just be like, yeah, yeah, she's a boy. They won't even question it because I'll obviously be one.
What if you change your mind at some point?
I'm not going to change my mind. That would be silly. Like, obviously, I mean, I've thought about this. It's not like I just thought of this yesterday. Like, I've like felt like this my whole life, and I'm not going to change my mind. Like, that would be like you suddenly saying, like, well, it turns out that like I'm not your mom. I'm actually like your aunt or something. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't do that because you know you're my mom, but so like for me it's not even I've thought about this a lot. I know like sometimes you think that I make rash decisions and I haven't thought, but I've thought this out. Like I've really thought this out. I've researched it. I've talked to a lot of people, and like all the people in my after school club that I go to, they're like, yeah, this is definitely the right path. And so I really like, there's no way I'm gonna, like, I know like you worry because sometimes I'm kind of impulsive, but this time I've like researched him. I really researched it.
All the people who are affirming this for you, how long have you known them? These people in your
Oh,
club?
they're so cool. Like I started going maybe I think it was last semester, and like all of a sudden I felt so welcome and so accepted. And I can't even tell you, like I've just been living a lie my whole life, and now I can finally be my true self. And it's just so freeing.
Do you think that people who've only known you for 6 months to a year know you as well as your family does?
Well, I think they know me better because they know me as Ash. Whereas like everybody else has known me as this lie that I was my whole life.
Well, going back to the question of people, if anybody ever changes their mind, do you know of anybody who's changed their mind about transitioning sexes?
No, like I've heard of some people who like I know there's like some videos out there, some really transphobic people who like pretended to be trans and then were like, "Oh, I made a mistake," but they weren't really trans. Like obviously because they didn't stick with it. So just because somebody else makes a bad choice doesn't mean it's a bad choice for me. I
I,
mean, you and dad have like wine with dinner, but there are alcoholics, right? And so maybe you shouldn't have that glass of wine with dinner because you might be an alcoholic.
hmm. um, I'm thinking about myself and I'm thinking about some of the choices and decisions that I've made in my life. And I don't know if you know this about me, but when I was 18, I almost got married. I was in love with this
Mom.
couple. I thought, this is the one. This is the one. I'm absolutely in love with him. And he wanted to get married. We were at college, but we were like, oh, we can totally make this work. And I was about to marry him. And before it happened, I found out I was not the only girl he was seeing.
Oh,
And I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken. But I look back on that and I think, wow, I'm really glad that happened. If
you
I'd
know,
married,
that happened to a friend of mine. I mean, they weren't talking about being married, but she was like going out with this guy. And then she found out he was like, had a whole bunch of other girlfriends. And she was like so sad.
yeah, you can want something and feel something so strongly, right? And then find out later, wow, even though I wanted that really bad, that would have been really bad for me if I'd gotten it. This is my concern about this. And I'm not saying, no, you absolutely can't go the medicalization route. I'm saying, I want to understand this more. I
Well, I'm
want to,
gonna send you like all these links, Mom, because I think once you read it, you'll totally understand it. And if not, it's just because you're transphobic, and that's something you can change if you want to. Like, you get to choose whether or not you're transphobic or not.
well, I don't identify as transphobic. I'm not afraid of transgender people. I'm not afraid of the transgender ideology. I love you and I'm concerned about you and I want the very best future that you can have. And I think it's awfully unfair for you to keep assigning me this label of transphobic.
Well, if you're acting transphobic, which it kind of sounds like you're a little bit that way, and if you really love me, I mean, these people, they love me. They love the authentic self. You might love that person that I was, you know, that girl that you think that you had. But if you really loved me and my authentic self, then you will totally affirm me. You will totally accept this, and you will not like, um, you know, talk about this as like, you know, you're kind of mocking me a little bit, and so that's how I'm gonna know if you really love me.
Hmm. Well, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm mocking you. I do not feel like I am. I love you and I will always love you no matter what. But I am concerned about this. And let me ask, it sounds like you're saying that to love someone, you have to agree with everything they want.
Well, not everything, but in this case, it's like who I am. It's like if you can't accept me as your son, then I'm just going to find parents who can, because there are people out there who totally accept me.
Where are you going to find those parents?
Well, they're like all over the internet, and some of the people in my club, like they have these families that they actually have just gone to live with because their parents were so transphobic they were out of there, and so there's places I can go.
Hmm. It makes me really sad that you'd be willing to throw away your dad and me and throw away your home and your family over a disagreement or over even just a concern. It seems like you're being really flippant about wanting to throw away your family, and that concerns me.
Well, it's sort of like you're just throwing me away if you don't accept me. So why is it okay
I
for you to throw me away, but then you're like, oh well, you're being flippant if you throw us away?
in what sense do you see us throwing you away?
Well,
How has anything that
this
I
whole
said been a
conversation is
rejection?
like you're trying to like if you really love me, you'd be like, oh Ash, I have a son, and like maybe you'd get me a cake and we could have like a celebration, and instead you're like, well, I'm gonna have to talk to dad about this, and I don't know about this, and you got to show me the research. Like it just doesn't seem like you love me at all.
Huh. I think you don't appreciate that the way this feels to me is that Ash is trying to kill my daughter. This person, Ash, wants to kill the daughter that I've known for 15 years and loved for 15 years. And this is really hard for me to hear.
Well, I guess that's why they call it a dead name.
I've heard that term before. A dead name is a name that belongs to someone who is dead. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that tells me you're trying to kill Erin. Are
Mm-hmm.
you trying to kill Erin?
Well, it's like she never really was there. So yeah, I guess in a way, I'm like, it's sort of like, the caterpillar kind of is plogging along, and then they go into their cocoon or their chrysalis, and then they come out. And so it's not like the caterpillar was not really part of what the butterfly is. The caterpillar just was sort of what they had to be before they could really come out as a beautiful butterfly.
That sounds a lot to me like the process of puberty. That sounds a lot like a child going through puberty, which is a huge time of change.
I know,
Physically,
I hate it. I can't even tell you how much I hate it. Like I'm growing like these breasts and they're driving me crazy, and the boys are looking at them, and I hate it, Mom. I hate it so much.
I know. I remember that myself. I developed my chest really early, earlier than a lot of other girls did. And I remember how uncomfortable it was.
I hate it. And I've been like using an ace bandage to try and keep them flat just so people won't even notice them, because I'm like, I just want these off. I want them cut off. I hate them.
I understand, and I'm so sorry that it feels that way. I'm so sorry that it feels that way. I
So
want,
I feel like I am the caterpillar who went in, and like instead of coming out a butterfly, I came out like a toad or like a grub or like a spider or like some kind of like disgusting troll. Like I am just like, I am not coming out a butterfly, and I am going to be a butterfly, and that's what the testosterone is going to do.
oh, honey, I'm so sorry that it feels that way. I believe you. I believe you. Everything that you're telling me about the
I
way that
don't
you're,
even know how you did it. Like, how did you even get through like all these changes, like the periods, and oh, like all of a sudden these guys are looking, oh, I just hate it. I just want to go back to when I was a little kid.
yeah, I understand. I want to tell you, and I want you to believe me, as hard as it is to believe, these feelings are temporary. They really are. The discomfort is so temporary, and it's part of puberty, and it's normal, and everybody feels it to some degree. And wanting to escape it is so normal. Wanting to do anything to stop it is so normal. But I don't think it means that you're not Erin. I don't think it means that you're not a girl. I think it means you're going through a really hard time. And there are ways to get through it. There are ways to make it feel better. But sometimes in life, stuff just happens and you just have to kind of suck it up and say, well, I'm just going to be miserable for a while until I get through this. And for a lot of people,
Mom, there's testosterone and it's gonna help because it'll stop all this. Like it will just take care of it. Like I just won't even have to worry about it anymore.
you'll still have to go through puberty. You'll just go
But it
through
won't
it.
be, I won't have to end up like becoming a woman.
Um, taking testosterone will change things. It won't necessarily improve things.
Oh, it
Uh,
will if I don't have to have these things anymore. I hate them. Like sometimes I just want to like take a butcher knife and hack them off. I hate them so much.
would you rather have a penis?
Well, I don't really want a penis. Like I don't really think I need to have a penis. I just want to like have I just want to like just have the body of a guy, like have some muscle, like be buff, like not my breasts. I want like when I'm walking down the street, people are going to be like, "Oh, there's a guy."
Hmm. Women get breasts, men have a penis and testicles. We all have something dangling off of us.
Yes.
After I got married and I saw what the male body looks like naked, I thought, I would not want that dangling between
Yeah,
my
I
legs.
don't really want one of those either. Like,
No,
wouldn't that be weird?
good. I've asked, like, what do you do with that when you, anyway, we don't need to go
Well,
there.
and some guys have those, but there are lots of guys who don't. And so it's okay to be a guy and not have that.
So it sounds like you just want to get rid of all gender. You don't want to have any sex characteristics. Is that right?
Well, I've thought about it. Like, am I non-binary or am I trans? And I think I'm more trans because I kind of would like to, like I don't want to just be non-binary, they them. Like, I really feel comfortable with he, him, and with Ash, and like having some muscle and being a guy. Like, because non-binary is kind of like I think it's sort of like non-committal, and I'm like committed to this.
Hmm. Well, I look forward to seeing some of the research that you have to show me. I'm going to do some research. I hope that you can give your dad and me some time to think about this, and I hope that you'll be open to hearing more questions from us. This is a big thing. Do you consider this a big thing?
Yes.
Big things need to be deeply considered. And as your dad and I study this and talk about this with you, I hope you'll be open to hearing what we have to say without throwing those slurs at us, calling us transphobic for asking questions. That's really unfair. Um, you've asked us lots of questions over the years about things that we told you, and when you throw something this big at us, we're going to have questions. And it's not transphobic to ask questions. We want what's best for you. We want you to be a happy, healthy adult. We want you to have all the choices, all the doors open to you to make choices later in life. And this one has the potential to close a lot of doors for you. Do you see any of those doors that might close if you pursue this?
Yeah, and I'm pretty happy about that. Like there are some doors I'm pretty darn happy about closing. But I'm gonna send you that research. And I think once you read it, you'll be like, you'll totally get it. Like because it just makes so much sense. So I really hope that you'll look at it and really like and then maybe can you just start calling me Ash and use he him pronouns? And then we can just like I think once you get used to doing that and read the research, you'll just totally support me and realize how this is really what I need to do.
Well, your dad and I are going to have to talk about that. At this moment, I'm not comfortable calling you a different name or different pronouns because I don't believe that one can have a different sex inside than outside. But I will read what you give me. I will think about it deeply. I will talk to some people. Will you read if I come across things that interest me? Will you read those as well?
Well, I
If
usually
they're
share stuff with me, but if it's like super transphobic, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure because there's a lot of like turfs out there, and like maybe you're one of them. I hope not, Mom. Like that would be really sad. But like I'll look
well,
at it, and if it's not transphobic, then yeah, I'm thinking I'll read it because I
well,
love
what
some of the
what does
stuff you sent me.
what does transphobic mean to you? How would you look at something I send you and decide whether it's transphobic or not?
Well, if it like denies the true trans, that they're like there's some people who don't even believe it's possible to be born in the wrong body. There's some people who are like, there's no such thing as transgender. And those are like so transphobic. They're just trying to erase transgender people.
What if I found a research study that was actually done in a very, it's a good research study, robust research, has a control group, has an experimental
Yeah,
group.
I love science. You know that, Mom.
Okay, so even if the conclusions of that study don't necessarily agree with what you want them to, will you still consider them if it's a nice, robust research study?
Well, I guess I'll look at it. And if, I mean, it's hard for me to even imagine how it could be a good study and not have the results like pro trans because like it's so obvious that being transgender is real and that like some people just have to transition in order to be their authentic selves. But if it's a good research study, I mean, you know me, I've always loved science.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. And I do too. And I want to find the truth and I want to know what's best. But I want you to know more than anything, I love you. Your dad loves you. That will never change. There may be times, as there have always been, that we have to say, no, we can't agree with something that you want, but that does not mean we don't love you. Do you understand that?
Yeah, it's just hard because like everybody at school says like if your parents really love you, then they'll go ahead and they'll like honor you. And like some kids they even get parties like when they come out. Their parents are really excited about it and they're happy about it and they're like happy for them. And like this has kind of been a drag because you're not really excited and you're not really supporting me in this.
Um, I want you to consider what you mean by the word support. Again, you said if I loved you, I would agree to this. And I take exception with that because I don't believe love always says yes. Love is about giving the other person what they need, what they most need, looking for their best as opposed to my best. And to me, the word support means to give you what you need to have your best life, to be
So when I give you all the research and you read it and you'll be like, okay, this is definitely what's going to be best for Ash, then you'll go ahead and like and follow the recommendations of all the experts.
if I read the research and they are robust studies, they are well done. If they convince me, I will always go with what science convinces me of, with what the facts are. Um, if that is the case, then I will agree with it. I am skeptical that that is what will happen, but I am open to that happening. But
Okay.
I need to be convinced
Well, I
first.
have so much to share with you. I'm super excited for you to read it because I think it's going to blow your mind away. You're going to be like, wow, this is so different from what I learned in school. Like, so much has progressed since then. So I'm super excited for you to read it.
Well, I look forward to reading it. I love you. Thank you for trusting me with this information. I'm sorry that I didn't respond the way you wish that I had, but I love you and that will never change. Curtain. Oh, that went a lot longer than I thought it would.
Oh, well, and like I thought it would be like 2 minutes, like 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Let's talk about how that went a little bit. Oh my gosh.
Do you think it was, I mean, and
It seemed pretty real. It seemed, my gosh, you were like no, mom, this is I was like, I'm really talking to a 15-year-old here.
I know, I felt really bad because I'm like, crap, I might be like, but you did so well. Like, I thought you were like so good.
Oh, there are times that I was like, what do I say? What do I say here? What do I say here? And that's okay. Parents, that's normal. You are going to have those
Well, I
moments.
wonder if we should do a debrief instead of doing more role playing, if we should do a debrief where we talk about it and say, like, you know, how did you feel, Maria? And how this might be more intense or less intense than
I
what you
actually
know.
thought that's what we're doing right now. I think we should
Oh,
just
we're still recording.
yeah, I think that's the right way to go with this is debrief what we just did because that was long.
Yeah. And it was intense. I mean, I really, you know, it's funny because as I was doing it, I was able to sort of tap into those feelings that I had as a kid.
Yeah.
And it felt very real to me. I mean, I was remembering how it felt to be so dysphoric and
Yeah.
to have so much hatred for myself. It really, so I'm glad that we had you playing the mom and me playing the daughter, because I think that I was able to really remember what it was like, and that anger that I had for people who weren't affirming me, who were like, well, you're actually a girl. And so I was wondering if you felt like that was more intense or less intense than what would actually happen.
When I talk to parents who've been through it, it sounds like a very, very intense experience. I have talked to kids, you know, who are trans identified, and a lot of the things you said are the things that I've heard. I felt like that was very realistic, and I really felt a burden as we were doing that to get this right. You know, what does the mom need to say? How does the mom need to handle this? And I don't know if I got that all right. Um, but I felt like, okay, the first most important thing is to keep telling the child, I love you. I do love you. Even if I don't agree with you, I love you and I'll always love you. I feel like that's the most important thing the child needs to hear. But then to start asking questions like, well, what is transphobic? What is love? What is support? You know, what is gender identity? And really requiring the child, because even while we were going through that, you were starting to talk in some circles, and we didn't really, I didn't stop and kind of address those places that you were sort of contradicting yourself or like circular reasoning, that it was definitely there.
And I think that that's what's important for parents to remember too, is that if you start catching your child and being like, well, aha, wait a minute, this makes no sense, this is silly. In these kinds of conversations, that could just turn the child off and have them like walk out of the room. And so I think it's good that you didn't like say, well, you said this, but now you're saying this. That makes no sense. Because I think that, especially in these initial conversations, they can be so volatile that really just empathizing, sharing experiences, and again, just sharing that love is really powerful. And I found myself, you know, kind of being sucked into what you were saying, but then that you know, the ideology is that if you're not affirming, you're transphobic, and that's what these kids have been told. They've probably seen it acted out. You know, they're seeing this kind of role playing in real life, you know, in their groups, and so that's where I think it's really hard for parents. And the fact that you were able to continually just de-escalate was really important. And the other thing that I think is important is to know when to end the conversation, because we could have gone on for another hour. We could have gone on for 3 more hours. I mean, honestly, um, but when you're in this kind of, you know, conflict, it's so important to be able to end it, and to end it in a way where the other person feels honored,
Mm,
even
yeah,
if they don't feel validated.
right, right. I think it is important to stress to the child, I believe that everything you're feeling
Mhm.
is what you're feeling. I believe what you're telling me about your feeling. Because these kids, they are having real uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah.
And this is something I wanted to get to in the role play, and we kind of got off topic and I forgot to go back to. But when you were talking about how uncomfortable you felt in your body, I kind of wanted to address there are so many reasons you could feel uncomfortable in your body. So many reasons. And the gender industry is telling kids, whatever makes you uncomfortable
Mhm.
tells you that you're trans.
Right.
And that's where the logic breakdown is. But also going back to what you said about not necessarily jumping on those hypocrisies and conflicts and circular reasoning. You're right. In these initial, really high stakes conversations, that's probably not the right place to do it. But kind of keep that in your pocket. And some other time,
Mhm.
when things are good between you and your child, maybe you're cooking together and talking about something different or whatever, and things are peaceful, you can bring it up and go, hey, I've been thinking about what we were talking about, and I didn't understand something, and I wondered if you could clarify it for me. You said that gender is fixed and you've known your whole life, that you were transgender. But then you told me about Billy, who realized when he was 18
Mhm.
that gender is fluid and he's going back and forth. How does that work? Because that's absolutely a conflict. And the child is going to have a really hard time explaining that.
Right, exactly. And the other thing I like what you did where, saying I don't identify as transphobic. I mean, those kind of comments, if you say them in a sarcastic way, can be very hurtful. But if you say them in a loving and, concerned way, potentially could be powerful because this whole ideology is supposedly based on feelings. The other thing that I wanted to point out that I think went really well in the role play and is something that parents, if a child first starts talking about these issues, can use it as an opportunity to try and figure out, what is the underlying feeling here. So rather than even arguing about the trans thing, just to try and like, what are those underlying issues that are motivating this? Is it because they're being ogled at school? Is it because they're a lesbian and they're being teased? Is it because they've had some kind of sexual trauma? Is it because they're autistic and they're feeling like all the other girls are social and popular and they're completely ostracized? And if you can sort of eke those out gently, that does a couple of things. First of all, it gives you a lot of information, which is really important, but it also changes the direction of the conversation in a way that can de escalate it and can help the child to realize that there are those underlying feelings that are motivating this.
My favorite part of our conversation was when I talked about thinking about getting married when I was 18, and I saw you engage, and I love that moment where we were both on the same page, and I thought that was so powerful. And when you turned it off and I could see you like have this moment of, oh my gosh, I just aligned with my mom, I need to get back to the trans narrative. That was so painful, but I think it's so accurate. I think that's what happens.
And that's something where I've talked to a lot of parents and they can see when their child is back. They can see that connection. And then they can also see when they turn off. And that can be so intensely painful for parents that they're like, wait, my daughter was there for a moment and then she went away. And you can tell that they made that choice of like, uh-oh, I better get back into my trans role.
Yep.
And that can be really painful for parents.
Yeah, it can. Um, and I think that's one of the features of this that makes it such a cult.
Mhm.
And we see this with kids. I call it boomeranging. And I think the boomeranging is actually a good sign where you're seeing your real child, you're connecting with them, you're seeing that real person, but then they flip back and dig their heels in and get really entrenched in the ideology. And that's what cults do, because cults put an identity on you that they want you to have, and it subjugates your true identity. But your true self wants to come out. It wants to be, you want to be who you are. Ironically, that's one of the slogans the trans identity people use is be who you are. But that real person wants to come out. And when you start seeing that sort of tug of war, I think what we're seeing is a competition of loyalties. Am I loyal to my family? Am I loyal to the gender cult?
Am I loyal to really, honestly, who I am? And that's something that we've seen a few detransitioners who've gone back to transitioning. And almost overwhelmingly, it's because they're getting more love from that community. They're getting, celebrated. They're getting affirmed. All these things that people need. And when they retransition after having been a detransitioner, boy, are they celebrated because the cult's like, we got them back. And some people use that as evidence that they were really, truly trans all along, but it's really more evidence of how powerful this cult is.
Yeah, I like what you said. We all need love. We all need to feel appreciated, valued. And this is one of the things the gender cult does really, really well, is it love bombs people who join them. And it absolutely vilifies everybody who's outside of it. I did like that in the role play where you were so disappointed. Like, I wanted a party. Like, all my friends get parties when they announce this. Why aren't you giving me a party? That really spoke to that. I don't want to call it immaturity because we all want a party.
Yeah, we all want a party.
I want to announce something and have people like woo hoo.
But it's also really superficial. And there was recently a woman who detransitioned and had been living, as a woman, and she just recently went back. And what she keeps writing is, now I'm happy again. I'm finally happy again. And part of the problem how seductive this cult is that it's suggesting that the goal in life is to be happy. And so whenever you have problems, just, leave those in the dust, become someone new and be happy. It's a very superficial way of living, and it's a very dangerous way of living because that happiness is so ephemeral and transient.
Yeah. Yeah. Happiness is a momentary thing. And you can't actually perpetuate happiness constantly in your life. If you're constantly chasing happiness, you're just going to become a frustrated hedonist because you can't maintain that.
Yeah.
We want to live in the real world. We want to be who we are. We want to attain a life that is productive and a life that is satisfying and a life that is meaningful. But just that I want to be happy, it's not really possible.
Right. And for those who haven't watched our other shows, one of the things that's so dangerous about testosterone is that it does make you feel really good. It's a controlled substance. It's a steroid. Maria, if you or I took it, we'd feel really good. We'd get energy. We'd build muscle. Our sex drive would kick in. I mean, we'd feel good.
My husband would love it because my menopausal sex drive right now, but testosterone would probably fix that for me.
Yeah, and so it's not surprising that after the initial transition, they're like, this is awesome because they were able to run away from their problems, and then they're getting this drug that any female would feel pretty hot on. And that's the danger. That's why it's so insidious, is that how can you argue with these girls who are coming out and saying, I started testosterone and I feel great. This is like the best thing that ever happened in my life. Well, if you start taking, some other drugs, maybe if you start giving your teens heroin, they might feel pretty good. But we know that that's not the way to live, that feeling happy, feeling good, feeling empowered, feeling, mighty isn't really a great way to live. And that's, you're going up, 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 and eventually you're going to crash. And those crashes are really scary and dangerous.
They are. That was tough for me during the role play because I really wanted to role play a mom who this was like out of the blue. She had no background in this, didn't know anything about it. But while you were talking and telling me about all these great things about testosterone, that Maria, who's been working on this stuff for several years, is like, I know all of these studies, I know all these side effects. I want to throw this all back, but I didn't, because most parents, when they're first introduced to this, won't be able to do that. And so it's perfectly reasonable and the right thing to do to say, show me your studies. The studies that this child is going to send her mom are going to be junk science. I mean, that's what's out there supporting this. It's not science, it's junk.
And if you're a parent who needs help with that, I wonder if we should do a video at some point where we really just dissect the methodological flaws for people, because if you don't have a background in research, it's going to be harder for you to understand how very intensely flawed these studies are. The Jack Turban study, which is sort of lauded as evidence for all of this, and is talked about in the national media, it's so badly done. And all of them, they tend to be self-reported, retrospective, selected populations, all of the things that we know undermine good scientific outcomes. And so it might be worth doing that, because I'm sure that there are parents who don't have the background in the science. And if we can give them language to use that their child can understand, because we don't want them to have to be talking about it. And if you start saying, well, those have significant methodological flaws, and the kid might tune out. And so it's important to have the language. But I have yet to see a study done that supported anything that transgender that wasn't seriously flawed. I mean, that I wouldn't have even been able to get through a committee review for my dissertation. I mean, they would have kicked it out in a second. And so the research standards are so low now, that it's really important for parents to have that, because like I was role playing. I can send you a bazillion, articles and research. Most of the articles are based upon just a couple of really bad studies, but there are so many articles. And we do have sites like Planned Parenthood and the HRC that will purport to show that, we have to do this, that this is, what is it, life-saving medical interventions. And that's just bogus. And we need to be able to call it out.
Yeah, well, I've just seen recently going around social media, it's a meme, and it says children who are affirmed in their transgender identity are 50% less likely to commit suicide.
Why?
That's baloney. I was about to say a different word besides baloney, primarily because you cannot set up a research study to study who will commit suicide and who won't.
No.
You can't have a control group. We're going to try to get these people to commit suicide, and we'll see what the stats are. That's completely unethical. Nobody has ever done it. Nobody can do it. That's complete and utter BS.
And there's also not a study cited. They're just making that up. There's no study they're even linking that to, because it doesn't exist. Even a bad study. I mean, there's just nothing. We have very, very little research about what's happening now. And the research that we do have shows that transitioning is unequivocally negative outcomes. It doesn't solve the problem.
It's catastrophic to kids.
Yeah, it's catastrophic to kids. So, well, thank you so much, Maria.
Yeah, we had a bunch of other role plays we were going to do today, but I think this is the one. I think we're going to stop here.
Maybe we'll do another one at another point, a couple of weeks down the line, after the parents and the child have sort of adjusted to each other's realities. But I think for now, this was a good introduction as to what you might encounter and the kinds of comebacks that you're going to get from your child.
Right. So good luck, parents. If you need support, if you need help, come to partnersforethicalcare.com. We've got a website full of support, full of help. We have a chat line. It is manned 24/7, but it's all volunteers. So if you don't get somebody in the chat, send us an email at support@partnersforethicalcare.com, and somebody will get back to you.
And I also just wanted to tell people, parents especially, if you're watching this and your role play spun out of control into like just a complete disaster, not your role play, if your actual interaction with your child did that, that's okay. And it's Maria has an educational background. She's an expert in this field, and she has practiced this a lot. And so this was sort of just a model of what might happen, understanding that it's going to go in all different directions. And if you as a parent just said, well, that's absurd, and that was it, and your child said, well, I'm going to run away, that's okay too. I mean, we're all trying to work through this and figure out how to do this. So parents, don't blame yourself if your responses didn't go over very well. It's not uncommon for a child just to say, well, you're transphobic, and walk out of the room. I mean, that's pretty typical.
Yeah. I want to emphasize too, I've had many conversations with my kids on subjects where it blindsided me. I did it very badly. It happens. Just learn from the mistakes, move on, keep trying, just keep engaging with your child, and keep letting your child know that you love him or her.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maria.
Thanks, Erin. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
We are not doctors or therapists. We are not giving medical or psychiatric advice, and we offer no guarantee of outcomes. We simply want to talk about how to support and love kids using long understood best practices from the fields of psychology, education, and child development. We're glad you joined in our conversation today, and we hope that you took away something you can put in your toolkit for parenting your gender confused kids with truth and love.